welcome you, Buster Joyner, to the first edition of the Sell Smart podcast of 2026. It's already 15 days into the year, but it's great to have you as our first guest. You have been the president of Atlas Settlements since 2005. You just told us you've celebrated your 20th anniversary as a company. Congratulations. That's very exciting. And you're the NSSTA president right now, president of the board of directors. You're the 40th person to hold that position, which is also quite an honor and quite impressive. So congratulations on that. So
thank you.
This is a podcast that is produced for and by and with the structured settlement industry leadership and members in mind. Last year, we actually, in the 16 social media channels, we were prominent on all of them with this podcast. And at one point, we're even trending. I'm not sure what that means, but it sounded exciting. Means a lot of people in the industry listen to this and learn from it. So let's dig right in and get started. Every year, you have produced a structured settlement industry State of the Union. When I first heard of this, I thought that's sort of bold for somebody in the industry, or anybody for that matter, to come up with something, a State of the Union report. But I found all of them to be fascinating. This year's report highlighted the extraordinary production of the structured settlement industry. And I say extraordinary because we don't have the final numbers, but it was another record year, it looks like. What do you attribute to helping produce the strongest year, we hope, we think, in the history of our industry, as you stated in your State of the Union report?
I think the sign of the times. We live. The settlements are certainly larger than they've been, and we have the community is out getting the word out, marketing quite efficiently to everyone. In addition to the internal rates of return are higher than they've been in years, and you've got inflation that people are, when taxes that are high, and so you can avoid all of this, and with a structure, as but the product in and of itself really kind of speaks for itself. It is, a way to, provide security for, people that really, really need it. They can't go out and work anymore, or they're not there, or, the family, the children and everything. So I really think the message is that what we're doing makes sense. The fact that we're producing record levels, I think it just makes sense in a world where with social inflation, you are seeing larger settlements, and I think with larger settlements, you have the opportunity to take care of people with a structured settlement. I always say the structured settlement, it's you need room for a structure in a settlement. They're large demands. When you're settling and you've got past medical and you've got bills, and because it takes a while to get these things settled, and so I think the fact that we're settling more, I think is a big component to actually why the structured settlement is growing the way it's growing. And then in addition, you have fees and mass tort. Those two items are growing, and along with the market-based products that is bringing interest into let's call it the settlement process. The settlement process, we talk to them about the plaintiff themselves and the family, and then you can talk about the other products that can provide growth, and they can provide attorney's fees, or they can be involved in mass tort. And so you this growth and the non-qualified, you probably got several hundred million in non-qualified. So that's so I think all of those contribute to our 9+ billion year. And I know people want to see it to go to 15 and 20, so we'll see what happens.
Let me just quickly aside. This past year, under your leadership, you should take credit for all of it. We added 3 life companies to the industry: American National, Athene, and Puritan. Is that because I don't understand the business like I probably should, is that a signal of confidence in the industry? Is it a signal that this is a growth, if you will, opportunity, important opportunity for the life insurance industry to get into, seeing the expansion that we're seeing this past year?
I think so. With the new players, that it's kind of, you've heard of the term in FO, FOMO, fear of missing out. I think you're seeing a lot of people, putting their nose into the tent and saying, what is this? And
Right.
and they also compete with one another in other areas such as pension buyouts. And so they're learning about, how the company like MetLife and Pacific and how these other companies are doing. They're competing with the pension buyouts with Athene and American National. So I think there's a learning curve here, though, that needs to be sort of had. I think it's just a difficult business to just hop in
Right.
and start writing. And so I do think that you're seeing people do it. Athene, American National, of course, Independent Life, and others, Puritan and others, and so I think they see it as a growth industry. I think that they want to see further growth. I don't think that they're getting in it just to. I think it's competitive. I think we're seeing a competitive marketplace here amongst life companies, and I think it's new for our business. When we were at $3.5 billion during COVID, everyone was just happy to get what they could get. Um, Now at 9+ billion, maybe 12, maybe 15, I think you're going to see some real competitive um, forces at play here, and I think that this a lot of it is because we have new competitive life markets that are
Very interesting.
highly
Mhm.
rated, and are offering good rates of return. So
Good to hear
I
that.
I,
Yeah.
I feel a change in the wind. I really do.
Over the years that I've worked for you and listened to you, you've said many times that structured settlements are a product of compromise. And after 40 years of structured settlement consultants, what do you mean by that statement?
So the in the settlement process, the entire settlement process is about compromise, and so what we're trying to do with structures is to help the forces that need compromise, help them make sense with their decisions when they do compromise. And a structured settlement is critical, and it just really helps that process. Because if you have someone, for instance, that has $15,000 a month in medical bills, that's something that has to be dealt with in a compensatory situation. And so when we show up to the table and say, well, this is what it costs, that helps people make decisions and helps them compromise. And so I think it's really part of what we do. And in addition to that, when I got into the business, we call it a win-win solution, a structured settlement. Of course, now structured settlements, are we're in a competitive environment with other brokers now. You got plaintiff and defense broker, and so that compromise, we need to compromise in our community with the other side to help provide the product that is so necessary to the people that need it so desperately, and that we live in a society that offers something like this. And so I think that it was born out of compromise, and I think it exists out of compromise. And I think that that's just the way I feel, and I think that it shows every day when settlement is reached. People are looking for you know a place to go, and this is a good solution.
So it's clear to somebody like me looking into the industry that there are some real champions in the industry. Honestly, you're one of them. A successful business person, a successful consultant, and you've built your career on professionalism and compromise. And those that decide to build their career on how much can I get from every case, is a it's a losing proposition from my perspective. And I think we're seeing some of that being borne out today. You get to be NASTA president. It's not a popularity contest, but you get it for 1 year. And in 1 year, you get to decide a lot of things like serious goals and objectives. What have been at the halfway point or about in your year, what have been your goals and objectives as NASTA president? Number one. And number two, give me a little insight, if you wouldn't mind picking on the other board members. How complicated is it to work with A plus 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 personalities in the industry around a table on such critical issues involving the future of the structured settlement industry?
Okay, so that's a long question. But what I'd like to do is just, if I may, just go back and talk about, the compromise, and we'll get into the board, and then what I was trying to do with the board, and why I ran for the board, and why it was so important
Okay.
To get Sage back into the fold here, with NASTA. So in 1990, early 1990, okay, there was I had to make a decision. So it was either to compromise or not to compromise. The actual business had not accepted plaintiff brokers. There were no plaintiff brokers. To quote Paul Hoffman, if you can remember Paul back in the day, he was president of Ringler. He said there are no plaintiff brokers. So when the defense says that they'll decide to use you, then you're a defense broker. So, so so
Pretty simple.
pretty simple, right? And so that was a turning point in in my career that I had to think about. And there's several people that helped me, and just witnessing people and how they behaved. I decided to compromise and to work with sort of a new generation of plaintiff brokers, and that were just coming to the business in the 90s. That was a conscious decision. And I witnessed other people that did not compromise, and just scorched earth policy, which has brought about sort of bad things, which is like QSFs and so forth like that. So where we actually sort of go to war with one another. And so I thought, with that sort of background, I thought that when Sage left NASTA, I thought that we were fracturing and not compromising. And so the reason I ran for NASTA was not only to be, after 40 years, I wanted to give something back. So you mentioned I write the letter, and so in 2005 I wrote the letter, okay, to kind of get my message out, because no one's listening anyway. But I wanted to get the letter out because I didn't think anyone else was saying it. And it was all, sort of the end justifies the means. And so here, okay, so that was what my goal is, to try to help, sort of come back together again. And we made some great strides toward that. And I thought, you talk about working with other board members. Okay, I thought, you know, I don't think that every board member agreed with me on this. I mean, no one's ever called me and said, "Hey, Buster, I don't agree with you on this," but I don't think they did, and that's fine. But they supported me and what we were trying to do, and I'm grateful for that. I mean, and these people are successful in what they do, and they're and but they kind of agreed that if Sage comes back, then that would be good, and so we tried, and I thought working with everyone was just incredible, and supportive. And then when our initiative failed, everyone was super supportive, and so I think even now I'll get a phone call and they'll say, do you really think it's over? Do you not think they're going to join? And so and I'm not gonna say yes or no at this point. They obviously haven't joined, okay? But I think, just like in 1990, when I had to make a decision on how to run my business for the next 30 years or whatever it was. And I made a conscious decision to work together, and to work with other brokers. And I think that we are close to that again. And and so I'm hopeful that everyone will come to the table and make a decision like I did in 1990.
You've got a 4 more months on your presidency, and then Brian Farrell with Ringler will step in as president going forward. One of the challenges being president and a board and an industry association is that continuity of professional leadership. Um, Not to ask you to go into Brian Farrell's mind, but do you see a consensus on the current board that shares your view of the value of unity in the industry, bringing Sage in, bringing the plaintiff side to be as prominent members of our association going forward is a goal and objective you see in our near-term future?
I do. Brian was very supportive of what we were doing from the outset, and I'm hopeful that he wanted to run for president, or be the president, because of the initiatives that we started. As you say, it's only a year. You can't build Rome in a year, and so I do think that he has a view that is shared by the board, um, and me, and I think. And that's Brian's very production minded, and I think that as brokers, and as life company, we're all, what's good for production is good for structured settlements, and then he also is pretty fair, when it comes down to agencies and working with people in the business. So I mean, I think it's going to be fine, and I think everyone will support Brian. And Ringler's not the evil empire that it used to be. So I think he'll do fine with that. Um, so I do think, but he will need support, and it will be interesting to see what his initiatives are. Frankly, now that we now need to go down a different way now the Sage hasn't joined, and I think that's going to be important. I look forward to being part of that. And I'm gonna give my 2 cents in where I can.
I'm an optimist by nature because the alternative isn't very much fun. I I thoroughly, professionally, completely enjoyed the brief 3 4 month relationship that you rebuilt with NASTA bringing Sage back. I thought Kyle Bowman and Scotty Freeman and Tanis Kelly, especially adding to our board, they were terrific resources. I honestly believe, in my sort of professional heart of hearts, that we will get back together because I think it makes good and reasonable sense. Primarily because I live and work in a city that if you don't have a unified message, you don't have a message. You can be picked apart very easily. And there are lots of players in the financial community that would like to take over the structured settlements industry, and they do it tomorrow if they thought there was an opening between the defense side, the plaintiff side, our group, their group. So your goal of unity isn't just a thoughtful way of reaching kumbaya. It's a critical feature of making certain you maintain the settlement industry, structured settlement industry, the way it's perceived on Capitol Hill and among our regulators today. It's critical.
So Eric, I agree, and in my letter, I said I still think one voice is the way to go in Washington. I finished with that message. I the problem, the reason that Sage left is approved list, and approved list and commission disputes. So I mean that is near and dear to their heart. Approved lists. They feel that it's their choice to choose what's best for their client, and they're being strong advocates for that process. And so when you have for instance we're talking about private equity. private equity coming in, new markets coming in. There's great pressure to produce. And so when you have barriers for that, approved list A plus A, for instance, where you have institutions, property casualty institutions that say we only want A plus or better, then you have an A-rated company that is just coming in, and they have goals and they have demands and pressure, and so these approved lists don't allow them to play fairly, and so you got a lot at stake here, a lot of work going here, and a lot of commitments. Probably $1 billion worth of investment has flown into our business in the last 18 months. All right, and so you've got with that comes a lot of pressure to produce and to get a fair share of the $9+ billion structured settlement market. So that's just something different than what we talk about as brokers about providing, security and providing a way forward for a family to move to go ahead post settlement. But what we're talking about now is you're talking about American business coming in and wanting to change the way that structured settlements have been done over the last 50 years, and they're doing it because they want a piece of the pie that is
Sure.
growing, and so approved lists get in the way of them attaining their goals, and but you've got institutions, large property casualty institutions, that even though they are happy about 130C and being totally exonerated, they're concerned about contingent liability. Look at workers' comp. Workers' comp is probably a third of what we do, and there's absolutely no way to avoid contingent liability in workers' comp. And so you've got a $3 billion, let's say $2.5–3 billion of our business generating multi-billion dollars worth of financial liabilities for not only life companies but perceived for property and casualty companies that are involved in workers' comp settlements. No way to get out of that future liability. So that's why they have approved list. And so that's it's a problem that we need to somehow come together on. It's just not an easy fix, as far as it's truly not a retail sale. You've got a sale through compromise, and so compromise. You have the defendant slash insurer compromising on amount. You've got the plaintiff compromising on amount and decisions going forward. Okay. All right. And so now you've got a dynamic that, is coming in, which is aggressive American business coming in, and wanting to participate and the change that will bring.
And
So,
bringing with in that in interest new market-based products and
and bringing
expecting.
and bringing in new market-based products, exactly, where you have products, frankly, that differ from the fixed annuity that we've seen over the years, that are incredibly sophisticated and bright, and have been vetted, and so you've got all of this, for instance, do they fit within an approved list? So you have these new products where investors have poured a lot of money into. You've got a lot of people working hard to get this off the ground, and you've got assets and money committed to this, and yet there's a barrier. There's a barrier to getting where they want to get, and so it's a real interesting problem that we have, and it's just you just can't, like my mom, God love her, and if she said, I wish I had a magic wand, I could just wave it and this would all go away, and but we don't, and you're not going to see casualty companies walking away from an approved list, and because they're scared. So they've been burned before. They've been burned. Travelers have been burned. Others have been burned. They've had to write checks post settlement, which is the worst thing that can happen. That's like almost bad faith type stuff. And
Right.
and so people lose jobs over that. Um so we just somehow we've got to find a way, and QSFs are a way that you can eliminate approve lists.
Let me, before you run that down the QSF, let me ask you a question that will set that up maybe in the way I'd like to hear you answer. In your view, are the structured settlements evolving into retail products with QSFs serving as merely as escrow accounts to facilitate the sale of tax-exempt, tax-deferred products? I know that's a mouthful, but it's I've got a concern as a lobbyist about this, but what are your thoughts with regard to that?
Well, so I know that that process exists and it is being done, and I think the community um, can decide to change it. I know Pat Hendard and Independent Life are very bullish on QSFs, and they think that's the way to go. We've heard him, at our annual meeting, state that, and so it is a way to go. I think. Well, I don't know what IRS, but I don't know what Treasury would do with this process if we decide to do that 100%. Um, it's an interesting academic kind of thought, but it's something I think that you're going to see pressure because of the mandate for grow and the mandate for premium that you're getting from the competitive forces that are entering. I think you're going to see pressure to eliminate the barriers that we have, and the barriers are proof lists. And so that pressure, okay, is going to be more and more and more, and until, in my opinion, I think you're probably going to see someone, find out if it's okay or not. And I don't know what everyone thinks about that. Whether Congress or whether Treasury, or that they think that, hey, this is the product that we need to provide for plaintiffs, and we can use these trusts to do that, or they side with constructive receipt and economic benefit. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know that I want to find out, but it does appear that we're kind of headed that way.
It's interesting. You mentioned the IRS and Treasury. That there are regulators. In the past, questions will arise about the industry, where we're headed, what we're doing, and we meet with our regulators to essentially not to ask a black and white question or get the answer maybe to this question, but it is important to keep them informed, keep them aware. Um, Let me just make sure I understand something, and our audience can understand something. Does Buster Joyner, as president of NASTA, do you control approved lists?
No,
No,
we
of
did.
course not.
The broker does not,
Right.
and it's very
And
high
and
level.
NASTA does not.
Yeah.
We
No,
we're not.
no.
We wouldn't tell and couldn't tell to a company. Now, could you have a dynamic where people in the industry, life companies, PNC companies, plaintiff consultants, could we come together? Yeah, it's called a trade association around the table to try to discuss these kinds of issues. Now, maybe not necessarily as specific as approved lists, but where we are today with QSFs and where we think the industry might be going, because you said it yourself, private equity coming in, not casually, but very aggressively, very effectively, and very importantly to our industry space. This is an issue that has to be addressed.
I do, and I would like to do it with the entire community, with Sage, with Sage involved, and I think that Sage, if it comes down to that, I will certainly hear from Sage, and we'll have a chance to talk to Sage about all this.
Good.
But I do think that we are sort of at a point with approved lists and with some commission issues that we're seeing that this is a problem, and I think we should try to solve it ourselves if possible and have one message in Washington, and that message in Washington is to bring tax-free, secure, guaranteed payments to the people that need it, and
Exactly.
that's what got us. That's what got us here back in the 70s. We had some miners that really needed something. This is a perfect solution, and so we now find ourselves, where we are today, and I think that if we get together and could talk about it, you talk about NASTA and I've heard NASTA can't really get involved with commission issues, and I totally get that. And so, but I think that along with approved list and the brokers amount of time and effort that they spend, I think that the broker community kind of needs to look at this commission structure, and I think NASTA, while they may not be the perfect entity to do that, if we're all working together at NASTA, then that can bring about conversations outside of NASTA that can be helpful to the overall process of successful compromise.
Very important point. I agree with you completely. We got awfully serious on all that. You're getting ready to take the CSSC program class at the University of Texas in March. It's taken you a long time to decide to earn your CSSC. Can you tell me what was your thinking about joining the program this year? And are you excited about going back to college for 4 days on the UT campus?
Well, yes, for someone that he thinks knows everything about everything, it will be very interesting for me to go to class. But I think obviously that's a joke. I do think that I'd like to learn and I'd like to see what is being taught to our new brokers. I had the pleasure of working with Fontaine Bergen, which is a lifetime friend that daughter of a lifetime friend, and she's a lifetime friend, and it was young out of college, and it was really good to see that she's now a broker. She's living in Tampa, and it's really good to see someone of that age, come through sort of a 0 to 100 type of process where I was involved, and I got a lot out of that. And I think that I'd like to see this with CSSC and see what where they're going with this. It'll be interesting. I'm sure I'll learn a ton, and so I'm very interested to see what it is, and I'm sure I'll have something to say when I'm there.
Well, you're entering the new CSSC program, something that Susan Bowersox with NFP and Jackie Mercer with Arcadia, and especially Robin Young with Summit have put an enormous amount of time and energy into in building something all around case studies. I think you're going to learn a lot. I think Robin Young has done a fabulous job with pulling this program together, and the comments we got the last couple of years are off the charts exciting. So you're going to have a good class to work with. I'm sure you're going to learn something. I think your classmates are going to learn a lot from you too. So I think it's going to be exciting.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. And Robin has so much knowledge, and so it's always fun to see her, when we're working out there together, and but also be good to see her in this new light as an instructor. So I look forward to that.
One of the great things about working with the structured settlements and NSSTA is how many people, including you, Robin, Susan, others, are so willing to give back to the industry. And I think of Karen Myers and all the time that she worked to develop the program at Notre Dame. She's now back in the saddle and helping us with the program in Texas. I think she's going to be working on an ethics program coming up for us. But Buster, it's great to hear your voice. Great to see you. I note the blue dogs behind you. Are those blue dog Democrats? Is that what that is?
So, well, I didn't mean it as a political statement. I meant it more as a, um, you know, let's all get on the bike and ride this out together.
Well, it's
And
impressive.
so,
If
so,
there's nothing else I've taken away from knowing and working with you, it's unity, it's compromise, it's professionalism, and you're a gift to this industry. It's great to work with you, and great to have you on the Subtle Smart podcast. I look forward to seeing you in person not too many weeks from now.
look forward to it. It's been an honor, Eric, and thank you for taking the time to hear what little I have to say. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye bye.